We're back once again with another stimulus check updates for you. What we're talking about today is the next stimulus bill, phase 4, and a stimulus timeline and how it's going to go down, or it can go down, and also good news, bad news for our second stimulus check update for July 22nd, 2020. Now, the Republicans and the White House are divided on a stimulus proposal right now. The Senate Republicans and the White House remain at odds over several central components of their next stimulus proposal after a full day of negotiations on Capitol Hill, according to CNN Politics. With fewer than 3 weeks to go until August recess, with the virus still raging many corners of the country, today's negotiations marked little progress. And Tuesday's negotiations actually marked a little progress. Actually, I want to say today's negotiations marked a little more progress, and instead evolved into a day of venting sessions yesterday for rank and file members, each with his or her own idea of how to tackle the next chapter of spending. It all comes just days before a $600 federal enhancement to unemployment insurance is set to expire. Now, they're split on key issues, from President Trump's insistence on a payroll tax cut, the administration's push to tie education money to the reopening of schools. There are also several Republicans deeply opposed to moving forward on a proposal pegged to start around $1 trillion. Senator Kevin Cramer, a North Dakota Republican, he chimed in on this, and he said, "Everyone has their own ideas." He emerged from a closed-door conference meeting. Now, Senate Majority Leader Mr. McConnell of Kentucky is pressing for Republicans to coalesce around a proposal that would serve as a starting point for negotiations with congressional Democrats. As you know, they already passed a $3 trillion bill in May called the HEROES Act, and he told reporters Tuesday the proposal that he's pushing enjoys fairly significant support among Republican senators, but he acknowledged not everyone. So not everyone agrees with this. McConnell, in a floor speech earlier in the day, outlined key components expected to be in the plan, including $105 billion for schools, second round of targeted funding for Forgivable Small Business Loan Program, or the PPP, another round of direct payments, that's a PPP loan, okay, another direct payment round, and liability protections for businesses, hospitals, healthcare workers, and schools. It's a proposal a large portion of the Republican conference is eager to get behind, but several key components remain under discussion with the White House. Now, the issues have been building for a better part of yesterday as Republican senators raised concerns, questions, and outright opposition to key White House tenets, which were laid bare in a closed-door lunch yesterday. And Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows also had attended this closed-door lunch meeting. One Republican senator had told CNN, "A lot of people had a lot to get off their chest." Several senators spoke up against the efficacy of the payroll tax, the senator said. Others railed against the overall path toward another significant spending package altogether. So there are Republicans against making up a new stimulus package. Multiple Republicans, according to a person in the room, raised the issue of the tax cut being too expensive, taking too long to implement at a time when the country is in need of a quick boost to the economy. Maybe 3 people raised it, and they were all saying the same thing. Maybe this is not necessary, the person said of GOP senators raising objections. Meadows said that administration officials viewed the lunch as more of a listening session, described it as more just. The senators talking and expressing frustrations with perhaps where things are right now. Republicans still plan to introduce their proposal this week, and McConnell made clear a sense of urgency remains with millions out of work and the virus still plaguing parts of the country. McConnell said that the American job market needs another shot of adrenaline. But as Republicans work through what will end up in the GOP proposals, some senators are already lining up against whatever McConnell introduces. So there's lots of opposition there. Senator Ted Cruz also chimed in on this, and he said, at lunch today, I asked my Republican colleagues, what in the hell are we doing? He recounted to CNN after the closed-door lunch, we'll see where this ends up. We still don't know the details of this initial proposal, but as it's written now, I'm not a no, I'm a hell no. Senator Rand Paul, a Kentucky Republican, expressed similar sentiments when he left the lunch early, underscoring the shift in dynamics among Republican senators since the initial $2.2 trillion package was passed unanimously in March. The divisions between the White House and Republicans come at a time when rank-and-file members have seen the president's polls falling in key swing states, and as the U.S. has struggled to shake the grip of the C-word sickness pandemic, as allies across the world have managed with far better outcomes than the U.S. have. The negotiations also come as billions remain unspent in the last stimulus packages, a point that conservatives argue that the next round should be more targeted, or must be more targeted. The divergent opinions between the White House and Senate Republicans have had the effect of holding off negotiations that was expected to begin in earnest this week. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says, we can't negotiate on a vague concept. We need a specific bill. When can they get us that bill? Who knows? Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a New York Democrat, he met in a separate meeting with Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Mnuchin, citing the expiring enhanced unemployment funds, is pressing for an agreement by the end of next week. He told reporters in the Capitol that we're going to get something done by the end of next week. That's the time frame because we want to get something done before the unemployment insurance expires. This is a process. The roughly 75-minute meeting between White House negotiators and the Democratic leaders represented the first substantial talks between the two sides in months. But without a GOP proposal or bill, Meadows acknowledged actual negotiations would have to wait. Meadows told reporter as he left the meeting with Democrats, obviously the leader and the speaker are waiting for any guidance from Senate Republicans. Very good. One area of progress, according to GOP senators, was on the funding for testing and tracing measures and other key public health agencies. The new funds proposed by Senate Republicans had become a central dispute after the White House proposed zeroing out state grants for testing and new funds for the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institutes of Health, as well as reducing money for the Pentagon's pandemic efforts. Meadows and Mnuchin, over the course of several hours and 2 days, met with 3 Republican senators responsible on healthcare and appropriations issues. Senators Richard Shelby of Alabama, Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, and Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri to try and iron out the differences. Now, Blunt said staff is working to get the administration negotiators more details about their specific requests and needs before a final agreement can be reached. He called the discussions with Mnuchin and Meadows very frank, but said things are moving in the right direction. Like everything here, nothing's done until everything's done, but we're getting close. And this is what Senator Blunt had said. But also now there's a shift here because a handful of bills are being put together right now from Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, according to the Chicago Tribune. Now, in a shift, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was preparing today to roll out a handful of bills instead of a single package or stimulus package as Republicans revolt and split from the White House over priorities, according to a top lawmaker involved in the negotiations. Senator Roy Blunt had told reporters at the Capitol, "I think what the leader has decided he wants to do is have a handful of bills now instead of just one bill. So maybe that comes together." He said the goal is to unveil those bills tomorrow, Thursday. A key holdup remains the tensions between Republicans and the White House over President Donald Trump's push for a payroll tax cut, according to a Republican granted anonymity to discuss the private talks. Hardly any senators support the idea. Instead, McConnell and some Republicans prefer another round of direct $1,200 cash payments to Americans. The rest of the legislation is taking shape even as key Senate Republicans are rejecting the rescue's $1 trillion price tag, which is almost certain to grow. So eventually, I believe it's going to be more than $1 trillion. It could end up over $2 trillion, possibly as much as the CARES Act was. But McConnell is trying to push forward with what he calls a starting point in negotiations with Democrats. Very productive meeting, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said while exiting a late session at the Capitol. Exasperated Democrats warned the GOP infighting with Trump is delaying needed relief to Americans during the crisis, with the U.S. pandemic toll, the death toll, climbing past 142,000. With millions out of work and a potential wave of evictions ahead, the severity of the prolonged pandemic outbreak is testing Washington's ability to respond. Schools are delaying fall openings. States are clamping down with new stay-at-home orders, and the fallout is rippling through the economy, teetering with high unemployment and business uncertainty. A new AP NORC poll shows that very few Americans want full school sessions without restrictions in the fall. McConnell told reporters earlier today that we're hopeful we'll be able to get there. Now, pressure is mounting as the outbreak in the C-word sickness pandemic deepens, and a $600 weekly unemployment boost and a federal eviction moratorium coming to an end starting Friday. But the size and scope of the federal spending and the jumble of competing priorities from Trump and GOP senators left the outcome uncertain. Senator Ron Johnson, a Republican from Wisconsin, had told reporters today, "I just don't see the need for it," referring to another stimulus package. Democrats, who already approved House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's more sweeping $3 trillion package 2 months ago, said time is running out for Trump and his GOP allies to act. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said, referring to the White House's comments, "We're still on the 20-yard line. Where have the Republicans been?" The White House negotiators, Mnuchin and Mark Meadows, the president's acting chief of staff, arrived late at the Capitol. After a raucous meeting yesterday, senators did not discuss the package at today's lunch. Still, Meadows said other talks had progressed, pushing Republicans to the 35-yard line. But Trump and his GOP allies are tangled over his push for a payroll tax cut, which many Republicans oppose. They also are straining to come up with a way to limit the extra jobless benefits, which many Republicans say are paying people too much money. A stopgap measure may be needed to prevent a benefits shutoff. As the Republicans battle over the priorities, Democrats warn they're wasting precious time. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, said, "We are just days away from a housing crisis that could be prevented." McConnell's blueprint is expected to include a new round of direct payments to earners below a certain income level, not specified yet, or finalized or confirmed. Similar to the $1,200 check sent in the spring, it will also likely have some version of Trump's demand for a payroll tax holiday for workers, which many Republicans oppose. Republicans said they want to replace the $600 weekly federal jobless benefit with a lower amount, Senator Rob Portman, a Republican from Ohio, said it would likely be swapped for one more closely pegged to state benefits rates. That means workers in states with larger benefits will get a more generous add-on. Portman said, "We cannot allow there to be a cliff in unemployment insurance given when we're still at about 11% unemployment." Republicans want to include at least $105 billion for education, with $70 billion to help kindergarten through 12 schools reopen, $30 billion for colleges, $5 billion for governors to allocate. The Trump administration wanted school money linked to reopenings, but in McConnell's package, the money for K through 12 would likely be split between those that have in-person learning and those that don't. Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican from Florida, said there will be another boost for small business lending in the Payroll Protection Program, or the PPP loan. He said it's going to be big. The centerpiece of the GOP package will be McConnell's 5-year liability shield to protect businesses, schools, and others from C-word sickness-related lawsuits. It's also likely to include tax breaks to help shops and workplaces retool safely for the reopenings. Mnuchin and Meadows made it clear during a private meeting yesterday with Pelosi and Schumer that the White House was resisting Democratic proposals for new spending on virus testing, housing aid, or money for cash-strapped states, according to a person granted anonymity to discuss the private talks. Republicans said some $150 billion allotted previously to state governments is sufficient to avert sweeping layoffs, and they said more housing protections are not needed. Now, Trump's payroll tax break divides the party. The Republicans they're talking about. Opponents say it does little to help out-of-work Americans and adds to the debt load. It costs about $600 billion, according to experts. The tax is already being deferred for employers under the previous relief package. Supporters say cutting it now for employees would put money in people's pockets and stimulate the economy. Now, Senator Mitt Romney, a Republican for Utah, who opposes direct checks in favor of more targeted aid, lamented the White House's handling of the crisis. He said, "I don't think it's been a great example for the world to see," he said. "We are still struggling." McConnell's attempt to pull the party together is only to become more difficult as he launches negotiations with Democrats. The price tag will almost certainly rise. Democrats are calling for $430 billion to reopen schools, bigger unemployment benefits, direct aid checks, and a sweeping $1 trillion for state and local governments. They also want a fresh round of mortgage and rental assistance and new federal health and safety requirements for workers. Congress approved a massive $2.2 trillion aid package in March called the CARES Act, the best of its kind in U.S. history. Pelosi pressed on, passing her $3 trillion House bill in May. McConnell at the time said he wanted to pause on new spending. So there you have some good news and bad news. You know, a lot of agreement going on, coalescence around the stimulus check. Most of them want a stimulus check, but some of them are opposed to the stimulus checks too also as well. And there's a lot of bickering going on amongst the Republicans and disagreements. Now, here's the timeline that I have for you guys. These are very important dates. I have here 4 important dates for you that's going to affect the passing of the next stimulus package or when we should see the next stimulus check. Now, the first date that I have for you guys here is July 31st of 2020, right? That's when the House of Representatives has scheduled in-person votes to end on July 31st. Then House members will be in summer recess. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, has said that she's willing to forego recess. In other words, cancel the recess if a stimulus bill has not been finalized. And the Senate is still in session after July 31st. So here's the rest of the stimulus package timeline that I have for you here. Another important date is August 7th, 2020. That's when the Senate is scheduled to start summer recess after August 7th, 2020. And McConnell has said that he expects Congress to finalize a stimulus bill before August 7th. If Congress does not reach an agreement by August 7th, this means there will be no second stimulus check in August. When will you get a second stimulus check? Well, Congress approved the CARES Act back in March 27th this year, and the Treasury Department started sending the first stimulus check on April 15th. That's 17 days from approval to the first stimulus check being sent. For the second stimulus check, if Congress approves a second stimulus check, it's possible that second stimulus checks will be sent on a similar timetable. Based on the CARES Act precedent, this would imply that second stimulus checks could be sent prior to September 1st if Congress reaches a deal before August 7th. Of course, the U.S. Treasury may take longer to send second stimulus checks, so there's no guarantee that the U.S. Treasury will adhere to the same schedule as the first stimulus check. Now, another important date for you is September 8th of 2020. Now, if Congress does not reach a stimulus deal in August, both the House and Senate are not in session until September 8th. Unless Congress works through the planned summer recess, any stimulus package will be delayed until September. While it's more likely that Congress finalizes a stimulus package by August 7th, it's possible that Republicans and Democrats do not reach consensus and a stimulus deal falls apart. October 9th, 2020. Now, that's the final important date that I have for you. That's before the elections that begin in November 3rd. The House of Representatives is not in session in October. The Senate is in session through October 9th. Given the election is November 3rd, members typically return to their districts to campaign. They campaign during October. All members of the House and 35 senators are up for re-election. So given that it's an election year, members of both parties want to ensure that there's a stimulus package to show to their constituents. So basically, that's all that I have for you guys here. I hope that wasn't too long of a video, but thank you for those of you who watched all the way through to the end. Also, as well, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel using the subscribe button below. Drop me a comment and share this video all over your social media also as well. And don't forget to join our Facebook group where you can get more information on stimulus check updates and what's going on with the next stimulus package or the first stimulus check. Also as well by using the link down in the description. Also, while you're in the description, check out the other links for free money and other helpful resources in there also. And from all of us here at the How to Get an 800 Credit Score LLC family, stay safe, be blessed, and we'll see you in the next one. See you tomorrow.
My name is Lyndon Baptiste, and on this channel we talk about ways to increase your credit score, build credit, and get approved for the lowest payments on mortgages and lines of credit, travel the world for free, earn extra money with cash back. And if that interests you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll never miss a single video as we make them.